Buying, selling or renting real estate in the Whitsundays? You need the team that will provide you with help, experience and results. Ray White Whitsunday sales team has over 100 years experience in local real estate, which is why Ray White Whitsunday sells more real estate than anyone else. Whether it's residential sales, commercial leasing, marine or rural sales, Ray White Whitsunday have the solution. So contact Ray White Whitsunday today and get the results you deserve.
It's 8:30, time for our weekly real estate market report, thanks to Ray White Whitsunday. And this morning, it's a very good morning to Lynne Erricker, sales consultant with Ray White Whitsunday.
Good morning, Tom. How are you going?
Very well, thank you. Now, let's talk about for a while. Stock has been pretty well hung on to. How's it looking at the moment?
Well, at the beginning of this month, there was one property for rent in the whole 4800 postcode. One property for rent. I mean, that's incredible. When you go back to, back to 2020, roughly when COVID hit us, there were 42 properties for rent in that area. Now we're down to this. So this is where we're really in trouble at the moment, where people are really seriously looking at where they can go. If they sell and they want to buy in this market, can they rent while they're waiting? That's pretty well unlikely at the moment. Rents are continuing to get stronger, and it's really a difficult place for people at the moment because the buying market pool is bigger than the stock. And when you talk supply equals demand, the pressure is then there that prices will continue to increase as people come forward. So,
is the buying market large because a lot of people are thinking, look, property prices on the coast are so high, let's look at Proserpine as well?
Yes, very much so. That the beach, the coast areas have reached a point where people can't afford a lot of them. Having said that, there's still people moving to this area that are cashed up. And that's part of the issue that's coming, is that many of the locals are thinking, well, this has got to stop, this is where it is, this is where the value is. But it hasn't shown any indication of slowing down. When you look at the fact that the properties that have sold in the last 3 years in either 4800 or 4802 are all roughly the same numbers that have sold. So it's just that the stock is moving so much quicker, and almost all transactions now are having multiple offers.
One of the things that's occurred on the coast and has been done for many years now is new development. However, new development in Proserpine just doesn't seem to happen, does it?
Now, there is more land being developed at the moment. I'm not sure when that's coming out, but if it's not of the right size blocks, then I suspect that, it will meet the first home buyers market, but it won't meet a lot of what a lot of the buyers are looking for. They want the flat block of land. They want minimum 3 or 4 bedrooms. They want 2 bathrooms or at least 2 toilets. They want side access, and they prefer a shed every day than a pool. So if you're looking at what the buyers want, then the bigger blocks of land are what will give it to them. So 700 square metres and upwards will preferred. And
that's a tough call for a developer, because they're trying to maximise their profit and their gain from that development. So they always tend to go for the smallest box possible.
Yeah, that's true. And if you go back 30, 40 years ago, the subdivisions were bigger blocks. And they recognise that that's what people wanted. And those ones, when they come to resale now, are getting higher prices than what people really expected, because the size of the block is dictating what can be done as options to what you can do, either extending, putting a shed in, just having somewhere where you can lock your boats up or your, toys, dogs, kids, whatever, so... But, it's becoming increasingly close to 700,000 for a low-set house on a slab in Proserpine.
That's an amazing price. Yeah.
Very much so. It's when I was in real estate earlier, I can recall looking back on statistics and saying that houses 500 and over were less than 10 in the lifetime of the town. Now it's like find one. If there's anything in the early 500s, find what it is and see if you can buy it and see what you have to spend, because they just don't come up very often.
You mentioned before the locals are saying this has to stop. We've just experienced our first interest rate increase for the year. Most financial institutions are predicting a further increase. Do you think that might slow the market a little bit?
It has to affect the first people coming in, the first home buyers coming in, has to affect the people who are borrowing. My personal experience at the moment is, particularly in Proserpine, but it's also happening, I know, in Cannonvale, where many of the buyers that are out there now are substantially cashed up.
Yeah.
And an interest rate rise is something they'll ride their way through rather than have it let them affect them on buying. An interest rate rise actually reaffirms in some ways that pricing is right. It's like the moment you get it up, it's like, well, they're trying to stop you spending, but the prices, they're not adjusting. The banks can't adjust the prices. It can only be the buyers that do. Yeah, so it is an interesting market because it's difficult to manage because almost everything is going to multiple offers, and many of the buyers are so frustrated. The problem I see at the moment in the market here is that there's just nothing to rent. And that's a very difficult situation because there are a lot of people who are always going to be tenants. And the situation, it strikes me that the infrastructure hasn't been planned far enough in advance for any growth. We still don't have a high school in Cannonvale.
Yeah.
There's some issues that you look at and go, that's got to be addressed, and they've lost the opportunity on so many levels unless they go and resume some land somewhere. But the concept of putting a high school out halfway between Proserpine and Cannonvale doesn't seem to be as practical as having something closer by where children can get to and fro, perhaps on a push bike, perhaps on a walk, or even on the local bus services. But it's very difficult to look as a long-term local to look at what's changed in the area and what's missing in the area and what hasn't been planned.
Well, you're a very, very experienced agent. You did mention that the banks can't control the prices. However, they do value the properties when they lend money. Is there an influence there?
No, at the moment the valuers are generally struggling because of the lack of sales to evidence price in some ways.
Yeah.
But because almost every sale is going to multiple offers, so therefore the valuers are in a situation where contract price is generally evidencing value.
Yes.
Because it's not something that you've only had one buyer or one seller involved in. It's generally more. And the competition has created a price that's perhaps above where the market may have indicated. But, at the end of the day, the market has spoken when you get people that come in and willing to pay.
Well, I guess that's also evidenced by people being cashed up. If they're not borrowing 80%, 90% from the bank, then the bank's valuation is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, I feel for the valuers because, they're university-trained people, they've got to deal with. And it's a struggle for them when you see blocks of land that are, like rural blocks of land now. A good block of land you could sell for $4.30 for an acre. That's wasn't that long ago you'd be sitting back going $2.75. So it's there's in addition to buying a block, then you do the infrastructure to build. So there's a lot of money being spent in the area.
Thanks for your time this morning, Lynne.
You're welcome. Thank you.
IslandFM.